Welcome, everyone. Go ahead and take your seats, and we want to get started right on time. On behalf of the Charleston Area Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome all of you to our Candidates Forum. I'm Cindy White, President and CEO of the Chamber, and we're delighted to see a full room here tonight. If you saw our promos for this event tonight, you know that we have 3 different forums, basically, that we're going to cover.
Let me go ahead and read the bios, and since Julie is going to be speaking first, I'll start with her. Julie Coe serves as Chief Deputy in the County Clerk and Recorder's Office, directly under current County Clerk and Recorder Sue Reynolds, who's here today. Julie is cross-trained in all divisions of the office, but her primary role in the office is Recorder of Deeds. She is in her 6th year in the office and says working with the people and meeting their needs is her favorite part of the job. Julie is a lifelong resident of Coles County and has been married to her exact opposite, Jason, for 22 years. They have 3 children and 1 granddaughter, all who delight her heart. Jackie Friesland is a native of Charleston and an alumnus of Lakeland College and Eastern Illinois University. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Business with an accountancy major. She is currently the city clerk for Ashmore. Before Ashmore, Ms. Friesland worked for First Mid-Illinois Bank and Trust for 14 years, climbing from teller to branch operations to assistant fraud officer, and receiving the prestigious Chairman's Excellence Award from then CEO Bill Rowland. Ms. Friesland is active in her community, treasurer of her church, and a supporter of Shrine and ALS research. She is the wife of Chief Deputy Tad Friesland of the Coles County Sheriff's Office, stepmother of 2, and grandmother of 2. So sorry to interrupt you there.
Quite all right. You're doing so well. You want to just go ahead and get this right? All right. So you covered a lot of my first notes. Get my microphone. I do, again, want to thank you all for coming out on such a beautiful evening. It tells me you do care about our community. I am a lifelong resident. I grew up in Ashmore. If any of you know where that is, some of you may. My parents were Jim and Joni Coffey, and they instilled the values in me that I use daily. They taught me respect for others. They taught me a wonderful work ethic, but I think one of the things that they taught me, and mainly I learned by their example, was to love people. And I feel like that's something that is important in our world nowadays, and that is something that I really enjoy in the office. Standing shoulder to shoulder with people every day, you learn from them, you learn their strengths, and I'm proud to say that I have learned a lot of strengths. I've learned efficiency and how to work well with other people through our current county clerk, Sue Reynolds, and through my coworkers, which a lot of them are here tonight, and I just enjoy and appreciate them. The reason that I am running is because I do want to continue to build on the strengths and the strong foundation that Sue has started, and I want to continue those things as well as incorporate some new ideas of my own. We've started some projects right now that I'm in the middle of, and I'm really proud of those projects. I can elaborate on those later if the questions come up, but I would like to be able to finish that, as well as start some new things. We have a website, as you all know. I would like to make it more user-friendly and more interactive for the people of Coles County. I would like to look into some online genealogy and also look into, it's an everyday question, do you have an ATM, do you use debit or credit? And we do not. We're still in the dinosaur ages, and that's something that I would definitely like to look into as well.
Thank you.
Good evening. I would like to start off by saying thank you to the Charleston Chambers for inviting us. I applaud you for providing an opportunity not only for the citizens who take time out of their schedules to come learn about candidates, but also for candidates to be able to learn about the concerns and the issues that our citizens, who we hope to represent, have and would like to bring to us. As Ms. Mason said, my name is Jackie Friesland, And I am not a politician, I like to say. I am, however, a Christian by faith, an accountant by education, a businessman and public servant by experience, and I am ambitious, impartial, and meticulous by reputation. Now I'm running for county clerk on the Republican ticket because, as it turns out, campaigning is the only way to apply for this job. You know, it's funny, when I was hired on Nashmore, I went through the interview process in front of 4 trustees. And now, as it turns out, it was not nearly as intimidating as interviewing with 29,331 voters. This is a brand new experience. Well, the county clerk's office is important to me because it is home to the vital records, deeds, and documents of my neighbors, families, and friends, the people I care about most. The clerk is also the administrator of elections, which is the core of our government function. It is imperative that this responsibility falls in the hands of someone who is capable and trustworthy, responsible, and accountable. I'm running because I want to use my knowledge and experience to serve my community in these circumstances. Ms. Mason mentioned that I worked at First Mid. My years there taught me a lot about customer service and conservative business decisions, about discretion and information security, about financial responsibility, and keeping an effective paper trail. I climbed my way through the ranks from teller and customer service to branch support and ultimately to assistant fraud officer. When I left First Mid, I took my knowledge and experience with me to the village of Ashmore. My goal as county clerk is to take the knowledge and experience I already have and build on it so that I can serve the office of county clerk the way the community deserves.
Thank you. And some of the questions may have already been addressed to some extent in their opening statements, but I assume that they'll elaborate on these issues. Also, at any time, any of you having a question that you want to write out, and if you just hold the card up, we have one over here, someone will come by and pick them up so that we make sure. My goal is that we can get as many questions in as possible, and so you're the ones to help make that happen. The first question is, what is most important to running an effective and efficient county clerk's office? And that would be for you, Jackie, to start.
An effective and efficient county clerk's office. I think the goal with running a county clerk's office is about the same as running any business or any office, and that is to be a good leader, to set by example, to be responsible with your finances, to be conservative in your spending. The county clerk's office is, of course, a public office, and so you're not just working with an income, you're working with public funds, and that to me carries a much heavier responsibility. It's important to be very transparent in what you do as the office so that if anybody has any questions at all, you can easily provide support for all of your decisions and be able to trace back the very purpose for making decisions and what you did to come to those conclusions. Along with the county clerk's office, because there are so many records and there's so much personal information, elections, property tax information, it's very important that the office be held to a standard of attention to detail and just to understand the responsibility that comes with serving the office the way it should be served.
You want to repeat the question?
Yes. And anytime, feel free to ask me to repeat the question. It is, what is most important to running an effective and efficient county clerk's office?
A lot of the things that Jackie's already said are very true. First and foremost, the people are the most important. These are your records. These are your vital records. Your children were born in this county, marriages were performed in this county, And I think it's important that when you come into our office, you feel welcome. You should not feel intimidated or feel like you're bothering us. We want to see to it that you get everything that you come in to get in the most efficient manner. We don't rush you through it. We pride ourselves in our office on the fact that people do feel comfortable, and if they want to stay and chat for a long time, we try to do that. If not, we move them on out of the office. And of course, you really covered it all. I guess I should just say ditto, maybe, and save myself and get us out of here quicker. I think one of the things that stood out the most is to be transparent. We need to convey to you that we are there for you guys. It's not our stuff, and so the transparency, and I think that's it. Maybe something will come up later.
All right. And Julie, we're going to start with you on this next question, which is, what changes would you like to make to the county clerk's office? And you could do one or more with that.
I was hoping someone would ask. As you all have already heard, I'm in the office every day. There are so many nuances to our office that I really don't think anyone understands until they're in it. We issue the marriage licenses, as we said, the vital records. We also, if you're a veteran, we hope that you would come in and get your DD 214 recorded. We do assumed businesses for those entrepreneurs out there that want to start with that. The things I would like to look into, we do have the genealogy in our office. I would like to look into maybe incorporating more online genealogy where people can actually do that from home. Another thing that we just started is the property fraud alert, and I'm super excited about that. We are working on that, and if you want to look me up later, I would be happy to fill you in on what that is. I'd also like to look into some online training for our election judges. And the other thing, I already mentioned the ATM. That's pretty exciting for me. We're in the middle of a scanning project as well, where we can go back and scan our books so that we no longer have to copy them for you and you have to wait for that. You can simply go online and purchase those copies there as well.
Well, anytime you walk into a new office, a new position, obviously there's going to be a certain amount of a learning curve. When I walked into Ashmore, I wisely decided to observe what happened in the office for the first month or two, taking good notes, asking a lot of questions. And from there, I was effectively able to determine what, if anything, needed to be adjusted, if there were processes that could be streamlined, if there was technology that could be added. You mentioned adding the ability to accept credit cards. And I was able to do that for the Ashmore Water Department. Digitizing and scanning documents. Of course, there are a lot of documents in the county that are still on paper, and that is very unique, but it's also not physically the safest way to store documents. I think that the county clerk's office is also in a unique position to educate about election processes and candidates. I might consider some new options for working with the school district on educating our kids with the election process, or utilizing, upgrading the website to help educate the public on the candidates and what they stand for. Of course, my primary focus, though, coming into the office would be to focus on the big factors of the business side of running an office and make sure that financially we're stable, that the spending is where it should be, and that there aren't anything important changes that need to be made to keep the ballot machines up to date and accurate. But yeah, I think that would be my approach to changes, if any, in the office.
Okay, thank you. My next question is probably the most topical of the night, and it's a nationally topical. and we'll start with you, Jackie. What measures would you take to ensure that our voting process is not hacked or tampered with by foreign interests? That was not a softball question.
That is a very good question. Unfortunately, I feel like without knowing a lot of details about the machines themselves and how they function, I'm afraid going into this. I fear that our technology is probably reliant on what the state allows, what the state and what technology is available. Obviously, we would want to take any cyber threat, whether it's hacking of our websites, hacking of our internal files, hacking of our ballot counting. We would want to take any threat like that seriously and do everything we can to work with IT and the utmost technology to prevent such hacking. And of course, if it were to occur, doing everything within our power to minimize any damage that could have come from it. Fortunately, right now, I believe all the ballots are also simultaneously, correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I don't know the details of how they function, but ballots are simultaneously processed electronically, but are also still documented on paper. So we always have the paper backup still that we can turn back to, which of course would be hopefully hack-proof. But
Repeat the question, please.
Yes. What measures would you take to ensure that our voting process is not hacked or tampered with by foreign interests?
Well, actually, that's another exciting thing we are actually already doing. You all have probably heard about the new election equipment. There are reasons why we, Sue, decided to invest and look into the new equipment, starting with the fact that there was the 2016 breach. That was not, let me try to say this in the simplest way, that was a state breach among the voter registration. It had nothing to do with the actual ballots that the people voted. Because of that, and because our equipment that we had last election was actually becoming obsolete, it was getting harder and harder to replace the hardware on the equipment. The modifications were not, we were not able to modify and make the equipment safer. Because the equipment just didn't allow it. We have a vendor, Liberty Systems, who is on top of it, and he knows about it, I think, before the people who made the laws know about it. He makes sure that we are safe, and actually, with this coming election in March, none of the ballots will ever reach a server. None of the results will ever go into a server. They will actually all be tallied on a memory stick. Our election judges will bring those directly into our office, and they will be put into a laptop right in our office, and those will be printed out in PDF form. So there is no room for hacking or error. I don't want to say never. We are always trying to keep on top of that, but we are on top of it today.
Okay, and Julie, this will start with you. We already had a question about changes you'd make in the office, but this is kind of a tag-along question, which is, could you name 1 to 2 specific things you would change in the Coles County Clerk's office to save taxpayers money?
I really honestly, I guess I'll just be honest here. I've been told the best thing to do. I am on the opposite side of the desk when it comes to these sort of questions. Our county clerk right now is I feel like very efficient at seeing to it that every dollar we spend is spent wisely. One of the things I'm learning is to listen to the people. I've been contacted and asked many questions about those things, and I guess my answer to that is I would definitely be open to listening to ways that we could do that. We are looking at, we are doing the e-recording. There are things that are coming down the pipe that I'm just not sure exactly how those will be cost effective and money saving, but that's something I would definitely get back with you on, for sure.
This is a very challenging question. Again, not being in the midst of it and knowing exactly what spending is occurring now, I'm not sure what exactly to say, specific changes, as they asked, for how to save money, but my first thought is to look at the biggest costs in running an office. Of course, human resources, making sure that we are sufficiently staffed and sufficiently trained at all times to minimize overtime, and being able to cover for somebody if they are gone or on training. Of course, there's physical resources, office supplies, paper supplies. If we can do things digitally, whenever possible, we save on some of those costs of printing and paper and such. Of course, utilities. We share a building with several other offices. I'm not sure what could be done to save anything utility-wise, but my first thought from a business standpoint would be to look at the office as a business and evaluating what expenses we have and going from there on seeing if there's anything that we can do to streamline those.
Okay, and then also Jackie, what are your plans to make the office more user-friendly and accessible to the public?
That's a really good question as well. There's a lot of good questions being submitted today. I wasn't really sure what to expect with this type of format, but I'm really pleased that we have an opportunity to speak here. To make it more user-friendly, we are growing more and more into a digital age. People like to look at the website, and while the county clerk's website is very thorough, I don't know that it is the most user-friendly. I think that there are definitely a lot more opportunities that can be used for that, for paying for things, for example, requesting documents, perhaps, as I mentioned earlier, using it to educate the public about candidates or upcoming events. Obviously, as she mentioned, if the office is not able to accept digital payment, whether it be by credit or debit card or by other means, then that would be a way to look into making it easier for people to access the information that they want to access. And then obviously working very closely with the other offices that the county clerk interacts with every day, like the assessor's office and the circuit clerk and the treasurer's office, and finding ways to open up communications so that we can serve people quickly and help people to get exactly what they need and exactly what they come for.
Well, I feel like I come at that from a unique perspective because I am in the office, and we are, I feel like, very user-friendly. There are some improvements that need to be made. Most of them are online with our genealogy, some of our vital records. Some of the things we're actually working on right now, as I mentioned earlier, scanning the documents, making those where you can sit from home and purchase those. We have online sites where you can purchase documents. We have an online site where you can purchase your marriage and birth certificates and death certificates as well. I feel like we work closely with the assessment office. We are right now in the middle of a huge project called MyDeck, where if we have any attorneys, any title companies in here, you can actually sit from your office and submit your deed along with your P-Tax 203. It's no longer called that, it is now called a paper deck. And we also then have the MyDeck, which means you submit it electronically and we interface directly with the Illinois Department of Revenue, and within seconds that document is recorded. The revenue stamps are electronically affixed. So I feel like we are already working every day. I had mentioned the property fraud alert. That is something where you can sit at home or make a phone call. If a document is recorded under your name, John Smith, you will automatically get notified either by a phone call or an email. A document's been recorded. You'll know to come into our office and we'll check with you, work with you to make sure that that document is indeed your document. Another thing we're looking at is the Veteran Award Program. It's something I would like to definitely move forward with. where we can honor our veterans and work with our local businesses to offer them a percentage off of any merchandise that they purchase.
Okay. The next question is for you to start with, Julie, about genealogy. How do you balance access to information with the privacy of Coles County residents?
That is a great question. That is a question that we have been talking about quite a bit in our office. We want you to be able to get your record. We are not trying to keep it from you. But you have to understand that we are also protecting that document. A lot of times you have a husband and a wife come in and they may get along just fine, and I may be fine with my husband coming in and getting my birth certificate. But there are families out there that maybe are not, and so we need to make sure that we are protecting that. I lost my train of thought. The question.
Oh, about the genealogy and then privacy.
Yes.
Citizens.
So when you come into our office now, most of our older genealogy records, you would have to go to an index and look those up. We don't charge for those within a certain age range, but you would have to go through and look at that. Those aren't things that we really want to put online, but I am definitely looking at avenues and ways that I'm hoping to look at ways to get that out there more easily accessible so that you will have it quicker, but without breaching that document. It's a protected document for sure.
Coming from a banking experience, privacy and information security has been ingrained in me as a very, very important thing to respect. As she mentioned, you have families that don't necessarily get along, not just husband and wife situations, but you have parent and child situations or adopted situations where somebody's trying to trace their bloodline, but maybe their bloodline doesn't want to be discovered. There are a lot of complications in families nowadays, and I think we can all understand that. And so to make a blanket rule about what is or isn't allowed, or who is and isn't allowed, can be a very complicated process. And so the state has a lot of laws and regulations regarding this, what information is accessible to whom, and so that would be the basis of any processes that I would want to make sure are in place in the county clerk's office, and I'm certain that they are now already. But going forward, making sure that we follow regulation first for the safety of our office, the integrity of the office, and the integrity of the documents. But otherwise, having been somebody who has tried to trace my own lineage from various places, I understand how challenging that can be. And certainly for legitimate purposes, it's not just an interesting thing to do, but it's an educational thing to do. We would want to make that as easy as possible for people to understand their heritage and to be able to trace it back the way they should be able to. But yes, balancing privacy is very important in that as well.
Okay. And Jackie, this is essentially an extension of a previous question or something that you may have touched upon, both of you have touched upon. It is, what technical upgrade would you plan in the office? The real part of that question is, do you have the budget, or do you think you would have the budget for these upgrades?
Again, I think we've answered a lot of, touched on that or answered it very closely already. The changes are obviously, it depends on the change, it depends on the cost. With every upgrade, you want to do everything you can within your budget to maintain security, maintain customer service, maintain the integrity of the office, and all keeping within the regulations of record keeping. And there's the county clerk office, because it has so many facets, is regulated by several different entities. So depending on what area you're coming in for, of course, it would have a different regulating agency that you would have to be responsible for. Now I've lost my train of thought.
Do you have the budget, the upgrades?
Yes. There are times when, if it's security related, that you may need to find a way to make the budget work. I don't know if that makes any sense. If it's important enough, it's worth spending the money on. But the budget is also, in and of itself, very important for any office to be run efficiently. I don't know if I'm making any sense or if I'm talking in circles. I guess it would depend on the change, whether or not you would want to risk the budget to make it happen.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about budget. I have a really good boss that takes care of that for us. But I do know who we go to when we have a question about the budget, and that is our county board. And they definitely would take a look at that and see if the money was there. It's interesting, depending on what side of the desk you're on, we're talking here about making things more easily accessible, but we are also trying to make money for the county, and we don't ever want to we don't want to stop charging or finding ways to generate income so that we can incorporate some of these new, fresh ideas. And so I think that's something that you always have to look at as a type by type decision. You know, you would just. I've watched Sue. I've watched our county board as they try to see what funding is there, and I guess we have to just take it as a base by base circumstance. I can't talk tonight, and I'm really not all that nervous anymore like I thought I would be, so I think my time is up, sorry.
All right, I have a question that I'm going to paraphrase and elaborate a little bit on. As you mentioned, it's the courthouse, and there are many different offices in the courthouse. And sometimes people come in, they have business, say, with the courts, but that's going to necessitate going to circuit clerk, county clerk. They don't necessarily know where they're supposed to go. And I think there's some frustration that people feel bounced from one office to the other. Have you noticed anything like that for Julie? Or is there a way to make the communication and connection among offices more efficient or effective?
Is it my turn?
Yes, you are.
Yes, I am very familiar with that. On a daily basis, I stop in the rotunda and I direct people where they need to go. There are signs. The security guards, if they're not busy, the bailiffs, they are really good about directing people where they need to go. Sometimes they get confused because maybe the person doesn't describe exactly what their business is. We have a sign on our door. It's kind of a joke that, not a joke, but we laugh because it's right there in big letters that anything court related is the circuit clerk, and yet they still come in. And it is an intimidating place to come into. You can only park on one side or come in one side, and then you have to go through the security and you leave your keys and your phone in the car. And we have a sympathy for that. I have a huge sympathy for people to try to get them where they need to be. And I guess more signage, short of getting a greeter like you have on Sunday morning at church. I'm not sure exactly how we would do that, but I do understand the intimidation and the confusion that people have. I'm proud to say that when people come into our office, we're happy to get up from our chair and what we're doing and get them where they need to be, especially if they're trying to meet a court date. So we'll definitely listen to your thoughts on that. I would definitely listen to that.
Having been a customer in the county clerk's office, I can attest that the ladies that work there now are very friendly and are eager to wait on anybody that walks in the door. I've been in for, this is just an example, I came in because I was looking for property deeds for business that was related to Ashmore. And they were very helpful. They sent me over to the assessor's office so that I could get a report or file number.
Document number.
A document number. And I went to the assessor's office, I explained to them what I needed, and they were very helpful, and they gave me a document number. And I came back to the county clerk's office, and they showed me back to their vault and were very helpful in finding these documents for me. But I will say that it caught my attention just, and this, I'm thinking that this might be the basis for the question, is that sometimes people feel like they get bounced back and forth. Again, drawing on my experience from banking, we had, FirstNet has several different product lines in several different areas, and people come in and they're seeing a teller, but they have a question about a loan or a trust or something else. And it's important to know what questions to ask so that you can help people find the information that they need to find very quickly, because their time is important, and also to give them the best experience possible. And so I wondered, based on my experience with my property deeds, if it might be possible to somehow integrate the software or integrate the systems between the assessor's office and the county clerk's office, so that when somebody comes in for property deeds, we don't have to send them somewhere else to get information first. But if there was a way the county clerk's office could find that information ourselves, thereby saving them a trip, saving them another explanation, and giving them faster service. Different things like that would be a focus of mine, and things that I would keep an eye out for if I were to be county clerk.
Okay, we have one or two questions maybe left. My next question is a general question. I know, Jackie, you are city clerk in Ashmore, and Julie, you're the chief deputy in the county clerk's office. So you have some experience within the realm of, I'll just say, clerking. But why are you seeking office for county clerk? And Jackie, you're first.
Why change from where, I guess I'm trying to just understand the question.
Why do you want this job is really the question.
Well, you know, when I first found out that Sue was not seeking re-election, it struck me that I immediately placed myself in that position of, is this something that I would be interested in? I was excited at the opportunity that I might be able to give back, that I could serve my county and serve my communities. I've lived and worked in Mattoon, I've lived and worked in Charleston, I've worked in Ashmore now, and everybody's my neighbor at this point. So I was excited at the opportunity that I could get back and be more involved with my communities in that way. The first thing we did was pray about it. Is this something that we felt that God wanted us to pursue, or did it feel right, or didn't it? And the more my husband and I prayed over it, the more I felt like God was telling me that the path that I've been on up to this point was remarkably good training for this position. I felt led to throw my hat into the ring. That doesn't mean I assume that God wants me to have this office, but I do feel like, win or lose, there's something in the journey that is meant for me to experience. So having said that, my husband and I talked about it quite a bit. As I mentioned earlier, the county clerk's office is important to me because of the record keeping, because of the responsibility that it holds with elections, with property tax preparation. And I feel like I would be a great fit for it, and I feel like the job would be a great fit for me. And campaigning and running for office, as it turns out, is the only way to apply for this said job. So that's why I am here today.
I decided that it's interesting that I feel like I have a similar story. We've talked about this actually, and I felt like God was leading me into this as well. So God either has something great in mind for both of us. He's got his signals crossed. I'm not sure, and I'm saying that tongue in cheek. As I've told many of you in this room, I will still be a mother and a grandmother and a wife. And whatever God has in store for me, my main goal is just to make my Lord Jesus Christ proud, my family. Sue, she put a lot of faith in me. She is actually the one that came to me and said, you can do this job and you can do it well, and I don't take that lightly. I may not be the best public speaker, but when I talk to you one-on-one, I think you're going to feel the love and the care that I have, not only for you as an individual, but for our county and for our office. We have a phenomenal office. There isn't a whole lot to change. Things can always be improved, and Sue would be the first to tell you that. Nobody needs to come in and clean house. I think any one of you that's come in, there are times when we have little quirks and problems that we need to work through. We listen to those ideas. Sometimes we just simply can't. And that's the thing. Sometimes if you aren't in the office and familiar with it, you don't understand. We are bound by laws and limitations. Maybe we've tried something and it didn't work like it should. We do interact with the assessment office, and we do actually have some programs where you can work with the two of those to just maybe address. A lot of times the reason they're going to the assessment office for a document number is because that's saving them hours of standing in our grantor grantee books, searching for those. And so we do that on per customer basis. If you've got the time, I'm going to spend the time with you and help you locate it. But I think that if I am elected, that I could definitely continue the things that I've learned from one of the best mentors that I've ever worked with.
Okay. And we really don't have time for the last two questions, but I believe that you've answered one of them for sure. The other question, and I'm just going to say what the question was. It is not, I'm not asking you to answer it, but if you choose to in your 2 minutes, you're welcome to. One of the differences from running for county clerk versus running for state rep, for example, is the number of political issues you have as a state representative is huge. So there's so many things we can talk about, and in a county clerk, so much of it deals with running an effective business. And so what the question was, is there anything your opponent has said that you disagree with or that you feel won't work? So if you want to address that, you're welcome to, but you don't have to, because now is your 2 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and start your closing statement. Yes. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend this event, and for making an effort to educate yourselves about the candidates and our qualifications. My hope tonight is that I've been able to answer all of your questions. If anyone has additional questions for me or would like to discuss anything more in depth, please don't hesitate to reach out, to catch me after the forum, or to reach out to me at a later time. If there's nothing else that you take with you, I hope you recognize that I'm someone who isn't afraid to do the work. I'm not afraid to ask the questions and dig up the answers so that decisions can be made effectively. I think creatively to develop solutions that save money, save time, and save precious resources in an environment where obtaining more resources is sometimes a hypothetical concept. I give 100%, and I take pride in the work that I do. I was blessed with a servant's heart, and serving my customers, my colleagues, and the people in my community is a labor of love for me, past, present, and future. My promise to you is that if I'm elected county clerk, I will apply the same work ethic and principles to this office as I have in all other areas of my work. On a side note, I would like to take a moment to commend my opponent and acknowledge that I believe we have both successfully run positive campaigns so far. We sat down together early on and agreed that we are both professionals applying for the same job. And that doesn't mean we have to get hateful or mean. There's nothing wrong with friendly competition, of course. But the fact remains that there is a chance we may be working together after all of this. Campaigning is stressful and expensive, and there's a lot of pressure. So kudos to you for maintaining your professionalism and running with dignity. And to the Charleston Chambers, once again, thank you for organizing this event and for inviting us to participate. You do so much for our communities, and I'm honored to be affiliated. Please vote March 20th.
That's right. I am a jokester by nature at times, and I just got tickled a couple times when you were talking. I will admit, you're very good. You're very articulate at speaking. But all I was thinking when you were talking about us getting along is you have way more hair to pull than I do. And I promise that has not happened, nor will it be, although I have been the subject of quite a few hair stories myself. What can I say? I just say you get it crazy looking, and then people won't worry about what you're saying. But honestly, we just touched on it again. I can't sit up here and not give kudos to Sue and being trained by her. The honor of the fact that she is 100% endorsing me, that the county clerk before her, Betty Coffrin, is endorsing me. It's very humbling, and I'm very gracious to them for being willing to stick their neck out. And I promise that I will do my very best to serve you people. You can come in one-on-one, and I hope you'll sit across the desk with me, and I hope you drink coffee, because that's the first thing I'm going to offer you. And I'm going to continue to work hard, just as I'm doing every day now, and continue to learn. I have a lot to learn, I'm the first to admit. It's a lot different being on that side of the desk. Sue does a lot of things during the day that I don't understand or have to do. But that's why we have departments. As I said, my coworkers are here. We have Dee and Cheryl in elections, and Lisa in elections. Michelle is my co-recorder. They know those jobs inside and out, frontwards and backwards. I am the recorder, and I know my job. I'm the most passionate about what I do on a daily basis. I have a lot to learn. I'm excited, and I hope that you guys will give me the chance to prove it. Thank you, and thank you all for coming. And I'll just say ditto again, Chamber. Thank you so much.
Immediate right is Jimmy Rankin, who is seeking re-election for Coles County Sheriff. He was born and raised here in the Coles County area. He's married to his wonderful wife, Lisa Rankin. They have one son, Derek, and two grandsons, Aaron and Elliot. He received an Associate's in Applied Science in Law Enforcement and an Associate's in Applied Science in Corrections from Lakeland College, as well as a BA from Eastern Illinois University. Jimmy has 16 years of law enforcement experience in the areas of court security, corrections, patrol, dare officer, CRT hostage negotiator, certified defensive tactical instructor, and sheriff. He is also an Army Airborne veteran. He and his wife attend Salisbury Church in Charleston and are active in many community groups. Jimmy believes law enforcement is his calling. To serve and protect is not only a motto, but what drives him every day. And to his left is Steve Spear. Steve Spear moved to Coles County in 1999 after an honorable discharge from the United States Marine Corps. He began his career at Coles County Sheriff's Office in 2000 as a correctional officer, earning the position of shift supervisor before being promoted to patrol. In patrol, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant, supervising his shift. He has been a field training officer, detective, narcotics officer, range master, crash investigator, SWAT officer, and SWAT commander. Steve has been a registered Girl Scout leader and is currently a 4-H shooting instructor. He taught a concealed carry class at Lakeland College. He's married with 3 daughters, 1 grandson, and attends the First United Methodist Church of Mattoon. And I will say they wrote their bios. I'm just reading their bios. Okay, so we did a coin toss, and the opening statement will be Jimmy.
All right, thank you. First, I'd like this. Sorry. Usually I talk loud enough with 6th graders in the room. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Charleston Area Chamber for hosting this event, and Unique Suites for providing the venue, and Dr. Gail Mason for putting on this event, being our moderator. Most of all, I want to thank the citizens of Coles County for coming out tonight and asking questions of the candidates that will be on the ballot for this upcoming election, March 20th. I am Sheriff Jimmy Rankin. If you don't know me, I've been the sheriff for going on 4 years now. And during that time, I've brought about changes and improvements, and I discussed or made improvements to the things I talked about the first time I ran for sheriff. Tonight, I hope to be able to inform all of you what my future plans are, not only for the Sheriff's Department, but the Coles County community as well. That's very important to me. Our job is to protect and serve you, and I am confident that I can do the same thing over the next 4 years. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Ben said, my name is Steve Spear. First, as everyone has said, I'd like to thank the Charleston Chamber of Commerce, the U Hotel, our gracious moderator, for hosting this event. It is events like this, as has been said, that makes better voters. It makes you informed of our opinions and our abilities. Thank you for coming out and listening to us and taking the time to become more informed. As I said, my name is Steve Spear, and I am the choice for the sheriff nomination of the office of sheriff. As you heard my introduction, I have the training and actual leadership experience to be the leader this office needs. We're not here to be dirty, but in telling you why I'm better, I have to point out some of the shortcomings that I believe exist. The Sheriff's Office ended the fiscal year 2017 $162,000 over budget just in the salary line item alone. That's one line item out of our budget. We're $162,000 over budget. This is unacceptable. But this is just one item in a list of failures over the last 3 years of the current administration. As sheriff, I will be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers, the county board, by better management of resources and personnel. I will return accountability to our office by attending required meetings, being present to perform the duties of the sheriff, and simply accounting for my time. Finally, I will return leadership to the office for the public and the officers through actual leadership experience and by being an example for them what a true leader should be. Thank you.
Okay, and we did a coin toss, and the first question will be answered by Steve Spear. And we'll just start with, there are many very specific questions here, but we'll start with a more open question. What do you feel is the most important task of your office?
The Sheriff's Office is a very, very peculiar office because we have several very different facets. We have the correctional staff.
Can you hold the mic?
Everybody, is that better?
There you go.
We have the correctional system, we have the jail, we also have patrol, and we also have court security. As is stated in statute, the first job of the Sheriff's Office is law enforcement, protecting the citizens, and if needed, bringing people to jail if they have committed some alleged crime. That is the main goal, the main function of the Sheriff's Office, is to protect the citizens of the county.
Actually, that's not the main function of the Sheriff's Office. The number one priority of the Sheriff's Office is the inmates themselves. The Sheriff is 100% solely responsible for the corrections part of it. The bonus to the county is that we get to have patrol officers out there covering the entire county instead of state police. I've taken it upon myself in my last election that I spoke about adding educational classes to our jail for our inmates. Something that's very important we need to do is give these inmates better tools and resources so when they go back out to the same environment they came from, they're going to have the education, or at least a little bit of education, that they can make it out there. Every class we have at the Sheriff's Department through our mentoring program is absolutely free. I met with ministers, retired teachers, educators that actually volunteer all their time to come to the Sheriff's Department and use our new virtual visitation where we do not have to move inmates from their cell anymore and cut down on safety, but we also, Monday through Friday, that same thing can happen when they come in and get an education when they leave the sheriff's department, they can pick up all those same classes and use those resources for growth. And that's what's going to make our county better, ideas like that.
Okay, and the next question will start with Steve. It would be. I got confused. Sorry. There's a lot of information on my podium here. I'll start with what might be the most timely question we have, which is, and this nationally, but also in Charleston, what do you think our schools should do to enforce more protection, to have more protection for our students?
That's a great question. I want to start by saying when I am a DARE officer at our schools, and I also teach a young class at the Christian Academy on my time at the Sheriff's Department, so I see what Humboldt TLC goes through, and I know what Oakland goes through, and I see what the Christian Academy is going through. I worked in Lakeland, not worked, but I went to school at Lakeland and Eastern. I went to school part-time at Charleston, and I went to school in Ashmore in grade school. One of the things that I've reached out to Oakland already is to get a link from the Oakland school to live time at the Sheriff's Department, and I will be working with our IT department to get live time if there's an active shooter incident. I've already started working with a few churches to do active shooters at churches in our county. These things are really important because as a politician, myself, I am embarrassed that I have to spend $15,000 and 20 hours a week politicking when we could be using millions of dollars that they put into these campaigns to put officers in our school. It is sad.
Do we have a question?
Oh, certainly. What do you think our schools should do to provide more protection to our students?
I think, given the very recent incidents that have occurred, not only nationally, Florida, all over the country, here locally, Mattoon, this is our county. We need to better inform the teachers and the staff. There's training available to them. There was a great teacher in Mattoon that saved a bunch of lives because she had some idea what to do. I'm not a politician. I'm a cop, okay? We can do all these fancy things, but if the people that are there immediately don't have some idea of what to do, that's where we're failing. We need to educate them. There are trainings available that we can give these people. We have these instructors in the county, and we can be helping them. We need to be walking through these schools. We need to be working directly with the principals and superintendents of all these schools that we have in our jurisdiction, and taking the training to them, taking the information that we have and we possess to them. It doesn't do them any good for us to know it. Best case scenario, even if there is a live video stream in Charleston, best case scenario, you're looking at 15 minutes to Oakland, 15 minutes to Humboldt. So that live stream is not doing anybody any good if there's nobody there and if nobody has the information and knows what to do with it.
Okay, and you'll be the first to respond to this, Steve.
Okay.
Similarly, what steps would you take to keep the people of Coles County safer?
There are several things that we can do to keep our community safer. One of them is replace the positions that have been cut from patrol. We are currently 2 officers short of the allotted officers, and there have been 2 officers cut from the staff completely. One by creating a captain's position, and the second we had just have not replaced yet. We are currently averaging 2 officers for roughly 520 odd square miles. 2 officers per shift. That's the average. Some there are 3. 1 shift a week there is 4 to 6 officers, but that's an overlap shift. 2 officers for 500 square miles. I can tell you from having been on both ends of the drive, going from Humboldt to Ashmore or Lake Mattoon to Oakland, that's a long drive. That's a long time to wait. We need more officers. That's what it boils down to. Not cutting them, we need to be adding them as much as possible. Finding some way to work those officers in to get extra patrol on the street.
Actually, there has not been cuts. The captain's position was refilled as it was with Darryl Cox and Ron Scott when I was there. What I did was take a military approach to the way the chain of command should be, which is sheriff, chief, captain, lieutenants in each section, sergeants in each section, and line officers. On patrol, we had a deputy leave patrol to go to a new job. We also brought that same patrol officer back, filling that same spot. One of those spots was actually filled by a K-9 officer, where I, myself, and other individuals at the Sheriff's Department applied for a grant for $56,000 for a brand new Tahoe at no cost to us. And I also went as far as making arrangements with Mars Pet Care and got a $12,000 donation, tax-free, not costing the county anything, to get that dog. We also got a lifetime supply from Mars Pet Care for food for our canine as well. So what we're doing is we're not getting rid of people, we're shifting people where they're more productive. And that's the way you have to look at it. So in the future, we're going to be doing more highway patrol up on the interstate as well. And you were talking about rural patrol. Rural patrol, when I was a line officer, I had it figured out to where I needed to do civil process and warrants. So if I went on one side of the county by myself, I would hit all the warrants. If I didn't get a warrant, I'd finish all the civil papers. Then I would go to each small town, Humboldt, Bushton, Raritan, whichever town it was, and I could go through every street and sit in the middle of that town if I wasn't doing anything, so I'd be highly visible. And that's what's been ordered to my men, to do those exact same thing and have their men do it. That's how we stay safe.
Okay, I have a couple of budget questions. And the first one is, and we'll start with you, Jimmy. In your opinion, is the budget that you are currently under adequate for the job you are asked to do? If not, what could be done, in your opinion, to increase revenue to the Sheriff's Department?
Great question. I'm always about looking at the Sheriff's Office as not only just the office, but a business. And that's exactly what it is. We serve civil process, we serve warrants. I've done several case studies, and during those case studies, I found errors that when the last time this was done, there was not a case study done. And by doing that, in Melissa Hurst's office, a line item showed 0 for 20 years or more, where thousands of dollars were going out of our county to other departments that are now going into the county. Those case studies make us a lot of money, and I continue to do the same thing. And that error wasn't found by me, but by doing the case study and following the statutes, that's what we found was that error. Other things we can do is to bring revenue in. I brought back the posse ride. Not a lot of money, but that's money that can be generated for the Sheriff's Department. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head because I have so many things going on, but the revenue is not enough from the county. We can only get what they give us. For example, if we need 3 cars and they give us 2, that cuts from our budget. This year, if we need $10,000 for office equipment and we get no money for office equipment, that's what we have to work with. Towards the end of the year, we can submit that we are going to be over budget, the same as this year, and the numbers that he talked about are not accurate by thousands of dollars because we were appropriated funds for a squad car and some other items.
Would you like me to read it again? In your opinion, is the budget that you are currently exists at the Sheriff's Office adequate for the job? And that you were asked to do? If not, what could be done, in your opinion, to increase revenue to the Sheriff's Department?
Simply, no, our budget is not adequate. I challenge you to find any politician that says their budget, they get enough money. Any county office, nobody has enough money. Unfortunately, it's just one of the perils of doing business. We have to find better ways to work within the budget we're given. We have to find better ways to use the resources that we have at our disposal. My opponent mentioned civil process papers and warrants. Yes, we serve lots of those. We charge $50 for every civil process paper that we serve. Unfortunately, none of that money stays in our office. It goes back to the county's general fund. We charge a certain amount for warrants. Every warrant that we serve, that money doesn't come to our office. It goes back to the general fund. We don't get to keep it. We need to find some way to keep at least a portion of that. Some portion of that fee needs to stay in our office. We're the ones doing the bulk of the work. Now some of it needs to go to other offices who are printing these documents and dealing with all these files. We need to find some way to keep some of that money to us. These numbers are accurate. This is the budget for 2017. This is the November end of the year statement. These figures are the ones that I got from FOIA in January. At the end of the year, the salary line item was over budget in the red, $162,410.56. I have the accurate numbers. They're right here.
The next question will start with you, Steve, although the way it's written, it sounds like it's written for Jimmy, but it's also about the budget, about can you stay within the budget, and we've kind of answered that, but also, and can you increase third shift patrol? So the focus could be on the third shift patrol.
We have to stay within the budget. We have to find some way to operate within the money that we have. I only get paid so much per week. If I send my bill collectors checks that are no good, guess what? My cable's getting shut off, my electricity's getting shut off. We have to work with what we have. We have to find better ways to do it. It would be great to, I would love to add more officers to patrol. Right now, there are currently 3 officers on the midnight patrol shift. That's 2 on any given day. 2 of them have they have separate days off, so 2 of them work at any given shift. There are 3 assigned to midnight patrol, and that's it. That's all we've got. We're gonna have to find better ways. We're gonna have to find some ways to get more income, to get more money to a lot more officers, to get more people on that midnight shift.
Thanks. Actually, there's more than 3 people on midnights. We have a K9 that stays over to patrol on midnight shift as well, and counts as another deputy on those nights. And they're also generating a tremendous amount of revenue. Could you repeat the rest of that question for me?
Sure. Well, the question originally, as it was written, was can you stay within the budget, sure, and can you increase the third shift patrol?
Sure. That would be hard to do, especially with a budget, because we are only allocated so many people from the county board. And right now, with the new bond policy that was put in place by the state of Illinois, we have to do transports now, and we have to get a transport team. We did a case study. Lisa White did a case study that showed every thing we do within the Sheriff's Department and Corrections, and it showed that we are 11 officers short in the jail. We got 3 officers allocated to us through the county board. So if you're looking at the amount of work these correctional officers are doing, I honestly don't know how they do it, and I can understand if they're wanting to go to another agency to work, because we pay the least of all those agencies. If they go somewhere that's equal or compatible, they can make more money and they can do less work. Our number 1 goal always is to do exactly what's right and fair and work with what we can with what the county board gives us. And it can be tough. The budget that we're talking about, he does have those figures, but we just now finished our audit. So that's why that is not a complete and accurate statement. So once that comes out in end of May or June, we will have a final tally on the budget.
And Jimmy, this question starts with you.
Okay.
Race is an issue in this county. How do you address the issue of complaints that Eastern brings crime into the city?
I don't know how Eastern can bring crime to the city. That individuals bring crime to the city. Our number one priority is safety of everybody, no matter what color they are, where they come from. We want them to be as secure and stable when they get here, and hopefully they're having or bringing good jobs and family members that want to provide and make a difference in our county. And what we can't do is keep arresting anybody, any minorities, and not giving them the tools so when they get out of jail, they're going to go right back to the same thing. I have a philosophy that if any person comes out of jail, they can come straight around into my office, and this has happened, and I will find them shelter, food, education, grants. I will do everything I can to make them better. I'll ask them to come to church with us, and these are the important things. We can't start putting our thumb on any one particular people because that's not the right thing to do.
Sorry. Race is an issue in the county. How do you address the issue of complaints that Eastern brings crime into the city?
I would have to agree. I don't know that you could say Eastern brings crime into the city. I don't know that there's a correlation between Eastern and them bringing crime into our county. I don't know that you can put those two things together. I don't think that there's a justification for that. Do we have a crime problem? Yes. Regardless of race or anything. I believe that all of our officers, all the officers in the county, Coles County, Charleston PD, Mattoon PD, Eastern Illinois University, all of the police agencies in this county have very good officers. And we're all very aware of the issues that are going on. It doesn't matter what the race is. People are dealt with by what they're doing, if they're committing crime, or if they're suspected of committing a crime. That is what's important. That's what is paid attention to. I don't know that we have necessarily a race issue.
Okay, and along a similar line, and it will start with you, Steve, can you respond with a few comments on your position or positions regarding racially biased policing and Black Lives Matter? And this is a complex question. And would you commit to de-escalation training for your office, provided it is cost effective?
Oh, absolutely. We need more training. There's no question about that. Everybody needs more training. It's a sad state, but we need more training for everything, not just the racial issues. We need more training for everything. There have been a few very small marches on Eastern, but they were very small, they were very localized, and Charleston PD did a great job handling those. They were never an issue. So I don't know that we've ever had that issue here where it caused a problem. But yes, we do need more training. We need more training in every area, not just singling out race as a problem. When you start singling it out, you create a problem. If you say this is a problem, then it becomes a problem. I don't think we have one currently. I think we have great officers in this entire county.
Would you like me to reread it? It's long.
Okay.
Can you respond with a few comments on your position or positions regarding racially biased policing and Black Lives Matter? And would you commit to de-escalation training for your office, provided it's cost effective?
Absolutely. Everything we go through is through the Illinois Training and Standards Board, and I think the same thing. We don't have an issue like that here in Coles County, I don't believe. I'm on Eastern's campus frequently, doing all kinds of volunteer events, and I don't see anything like that. So if the training was available and it was cost effective, everything we want to do is cost effective, especially when it comes to training our officers.
Okay. And a question starting with you, Jimmy. How important or useful are regular meetings with leaders of other law enforcement in the county?
They're important on every different aspect of what we do. I'm no different than when Jeff Branson was a chief. He would send his chief deputy, but if he couldn't make it, he would definitely send a chief deputy, then the chief deputy would report to him. I attend a lot of meetings. I don't attend every meeting, but I have a great staff, starting with my chief deputy, Tad Friesland, and the Captain Brian Houston. Between the two of them, they have about 50 years of law enforcement experience. I don't have that. Every position that I put in command at the Sheriff's Department is going to be top-notch. They are tested and put into those positions to where they are going to lead and lead by example. So, I got that.
How important or useful are regular meetings with leaders of other law enforcement in the county?
I would say not only is it useful, it's required. Part of the job of being the sheriff or the chief is sitting on numerous boards. There's the 911 board, the Training and Standards board, the Training Unit board, the SWAT team board, the Crime Stoppers board, and the Mobile Training Unit. The Drug Task Force, sorry. There's at least 5 boards right there that are required. Those monthly meetings, or quarterly meetings as they may be, they're part of the job. That's expected. When you're the head of an agency, that's just part of your duties. You're on that board. And it's great to send somebody else to. If we send somebody else to those meetings, though, they don't get to have a say. We don't have a say in that because they have no voting. They can't make a decision as the boss or the sheriff can. We need to be, the sheriff needs to be in attendance at those meetings. Okay, you're going to miss one every now and then. Missing them regularly is a problem. We have to be there. We have to have our say in what happens in each of those organizations.
Okay, the next question. What policies and procedures would you change for the betterment of the department?
We have a very long policies and procedures manual, and it was funny, I was just discussing this the other night with an officer, actually the last officer who updated our policies and procedures manual in 2011. Many things have changed in our department, in policing in general. We need to update these policies. We need to make them current. I can't give you a specific example off the top of my head because I don't have the entire policy book memorized, but we need to go through and update our entire policy manual. We have to keep up with this date and time. We've added body cameras to our patrol officers now. And I believe that there has been some additions to the policy itself. However, the policy that's available to the officers, it's not in that. We need to go through and update the entire policy.
Actually, the policies were updated in 2015 because when I took office, unfortunately, I wasn't trained by the former sheriff. When I showed up at the department on the day that I took over, the keys were locked inside. All the manuals, computer, everything was wiped clean. I didn't take this as I was going to tell everybody. I put my training and experience from Eastern and Lakeland College and everything I did prior to that to make this office better. Yeah, there's been some bumps in the road, but some things that come out of it are a lot better. I promised in the beginning that I would test. I'd hire the brightest, the strongest, the fastest, the most dedicated people we can to our county. I have not strayed from that one time, no matter what position. And one example I can tell you is I did promote a lieutenant. This lieutenant after being promoted, solved the airtight case. After getting the tools that she needed for so long in that same position, and she gave closure to that family. So a good leader will put people in positions that are going to do the right things for the right reasons. And usually a sheriff promotes someone after doing something so great like that. But it shows that if you do the right thing, it'll all come back. Not just to me, not just to our officers or our department, but to every one of you.
Okay, you mentioned earlier we had a question about the most important task of the sheriff. Here's a question about grant writing. It says, what is the role of and how important is grant writing, and do you have that experience?
I have some grant writing experience, but nothing that I could do on my own. I asked other officers when we wrote the Tahoe grant to help me with that grant. It was sent in, sent back 3 times before we actually got the $56,000, but it was not without trial and error that we kept going. We could have gave up on it and not worried about getting that Tahoe. Some of the other things we do with our training is when an officer goes away to training, we get reimbursed for part of that, but it's because of the chief deputy's experience in filling out those forms to send back to the state is why we get that money back. I don't have the experience or training and knowledge to do that, but he has that. The chief deputy prior to him trained him to do that. Those are important things. Grant writing, it's a hard thing, especially now. I think it's getting better with the economy. I think some stuff will loosen up that we can get more grants, but we've applied for optic grants, rifle grants, and some other that the captain had submitted in 2015, but we didn't get anything in reference to that.
What is the role of and how important is grant writing? Do you have that experience?
I'm going to go back just for a second and touch on a comment that was made regarding the promotion of a lieutenant. This is not anything personal about this person. However, this one lieutenant supervises 2 other officers. This is an additional expense that we don't need. One lieutenant does not need to be supervising 2 officers. One of those other officers is a command officer himself. He's a sergeant. So now we have a lieutenant supervising a sergeant supervising a one-line officer. These are the kinds of things that we need to change. There's no need for 2 command officers in a 3-person section. As far as grant writing, no, I do not have any grant writing training. However, there are free grant writing courses that are available through some of our local training agencies. There's actually one scheduled May or June in a local training agency. Free grant writing training that we could be attending. Nobody's slotted for that. Nobody knows anything about it. We do need some grants. Grants are great things. We also have to make sure when we're looking at these grants, some of these grants are matching funds. We have to be able to come up with certain portions of the money that's allocated for these grants. If we have to come up with, say, 25% of a grant in a budget that's already short, we may not be able to fulfill the requirements of that grant. So while they're a great thing, there are some stipulations and some requirements that we may have to fulfill to receive it.
Okay, my next question is, what is the role of collective bargaining in the Sheriff's Department, and do you support it?
I absolutely support it. Collective bargaining is the FOP union, the Fraternal Order of Police union, sitting down with the administration and the county board, figuring out the contracts that cover our pay, that cover our benefits, that cover our time off, that cover our disciplinary issues, that cover all of the things that make our office run. Collective bargaining, it's not something we can just not do. It's part of having a union. That's the process. The union sits down with the administration and county board, and they work out the contract. And that's how it works.
Sorry. What is the role of collective bargaining in the Sheriff's Department, and do you support it?
I do support collective bargaining. I was a union steward or a union vice president at one time, and everything that they go over is important to a line officer or a sergeant and lieutenant and below. This sets the guidelines and rules and regulations and how much pay they get. When the chief deputy said in one of the meetings, he came up to me and says they want 4% for corrections and 6% for patrol. The first thing I said was give it to them. Because we're losing officers because they're not getting paid. They're going to other agencies in Charleston and Mattoon that are getting $10,000 more a year. In over 10 years, what could that do for your family? But over 30 years, how much more could you do for your family? So we're a training ground for every one of these agencies, and we hire people, and we're hiring now the best people to try to keep them here to do a good job for all of us.
Okay, and the last question we'll have time for, and there have been so many questions submitted, I really appreciate that, is about morale. Yep. And it says, if elected, re-elected in your case, elected for Sergeant Spear, if elected, what steps do you plan to take to address perceived morale issues?
I did that first, right?
Yes.
Okay. Morale issues, I'm sure you've heard about that in the paper. This is nothing uncommon to a sheriff that you will hear about morale, especially when a sheriff comes in right away that's been a line officer and knows everybody and how they work and how they work the system or don't work the system, who I can put in place that's going to do the job for you. Has nothing to do with me. There's no more good old boy system. It's broken. So what I'm doing is making sure everything is right, and in my power, as long as I stay here, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to hold people accountable to do their job. We have individuals, we have a lot of people that work at the Sheriff's Department that are amazing. And I'm putting those people in amazing positions to get their patrolmen and sergeants to follow suit. At any time, a sergeant or a lieutenant can come to me and say, hey, I have an idea about anything to raise money. I have very far and few between of those. I'm usually on every committee through Coles County that's working to make everything better.
It's about morale. If elected, what changes or steps do you anticipate taking to improve morale, perceived morale issues within your department?
Morale issues is one of those things that we should not have. There should not be a reason for morale issues. If you treat people with respect, you treat people decent, you don't have to coddle them, you don't have to baby them. Treat them with a little bit of respect. A thank you goes a long way. We have such poor morale in our office at this point. It can be fixed, but it's going to take some time. We're going to have to rebuild a lot of trust between the officers and the administration. We're going to have to do a lot of working together to get this. This is not something one person can fix. This is going to have to be something that's going to be a process to fix. If your subordinates or officers or whatever, people underneath you, if they respect you, if they trust your leadership and they trust your judgment, they will do whatever they have to do to get the job done. But if they don't respect you, if they don't trust your judgment, they will do only what they have to do to get by. We have created an issue where there is a direct lack of trust, direct lack of leadership, and the officers are seeing it and they're leaving in droves. We have to fix this. It's imperative to our officers that we fix this and we take care of them. We have to train them more. I guarantee you, right now, the training records for Broward County Sheriff's Office in Florida, where there was just a shooting, they're going through those training records, and we have to fix it.
And now it's time for closing statements, and we'll go ahead and start with you, Steve.
Okay.
And again, I mentioned, and this is also for state rep, that you can have a prepared statement. You can talk about something that came up or something that hasn't come up.
Okay. We're closing, as she said. I will be very, very brief. I'm not going to take any more of your time. Let me say again, thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, the hotel, and our moderator for being here this evening. Thank you again to those of you that have come out to be better informed, to learn what our thoughts and opinions are. Unfortunately, being a nice guy or being really likable doesn't mean you have the ability to run the sheriff's office and lead our officers. There's an old adage that says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I hate to say it, but our administration is desperately broken. I have the training and actual leadership experience to be the fix and solve the problems that have been plaguing us for the last 3 years, and I believe that I can do that. I am very proud to say that I am supported and openly endorsed by the FOP Lodge from our Sheriff's Office, our union. I'm also supported and endorsed by the FOP Lodge from the Charleston Police Department. It was an amazing honor to me to be supported by my coworkers. I'm also supported by the 3 living retired sheriffs from Coles County, Sheriff Darrell Cox, Sheriff Ron Scott, and Sheriff Mike Curtis. All 3 of them support me wholly. And it's not because I'm a nice guy, it's not because some parlor tricks, it's because they've worked with me and they know that I can do the job and do it right. There are a host of my family and friends and other officers, retired and still working, that have put their faith in me and my ability to do the job, and I will not let them down. With that, I will ask for your support 21 days from today on March 20th, when you go to the polls, elect me the Republican Sheriff's nominee for Coles County. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to say that as a sergeant that works for me, he does already have the opportunity and the ability to make things happen and make things better. But not once since he's been passed over for lieutenant has he come to my office to make any will to change anything. I haven't spoken to him one word. And that's a problem. He's right. There is a morale problem. We don't need to have this type of discourse in the Sheriff's Department. This is exactly why I'm weeding them out. I'm holding their feet to fire to do their job for you, for me, for our kids, and to make a difference. I don't have time for it. If we had every officer in the county that looked at the community the same way I did, could you imagine what kind of place we'd live in? And yes, I'm a nice guy. But as a nice guy, I can also use my training and experience, my now almost 4 years as a sheriff, keep my wheels to the grindstone, using my education from Lakeland and Eastern, and getting other guys up to that same level. And that's what we need to do. Thank you, Dr. Gail Mason, for being our moderator. Charleston Chamber, I appreciate everything you do for us. You make our community better. And thank you to Unique Suites and putting this event on. Thanks, everybody.
Terry Davis, originally from Ohio, moved to Charleston with his son Ian in 1979 to manage Hagel's Jewelers. He then purchased the business in 1984, renaming it Town Square Jewelers. Terry married Kathy Van Bellum in 1992, and together they raised Ian and their daughter Elena. Over the last 30 years, Terry has served on the Downtown Merchants Association, the United Way, and the Charleston Chamber Board. He has been a strong supporter of many local organizations, including Hope, SACUS, the YMCA, as well as Eastern Illinois and the Sarah Bush Lincoln Guild. Terry is also past president of the Charleston Rotary Club. Chris Miller lives in Oakland, Illinois, where he was born and raised. After graduating from Oakland High School, Chris attended Eureka College and obtained a Bachelor's of Science degree in education. Later, Chris attended Lakeland College and received an associate's degree in agriculture. He is a third-generation farmer and raises Angus cattle. Chris and his wife Mary have been married for 37 years. They have 7 children and 14 grandchildren. And we're going to go ahead and start with Mr. Goff reading his opening statement.
Okay. Is this on?
Yep.
Very good. As she mentioned, my name is Justin Goff. I am Chris's son-in-law, but I am also his campaign manager and campaign treasurer. So it is a joy to be here tonight to represent him. As she mentioned about him, he is from Oakland. He's a farmer. But I want to mention some other things about Chris tonight. Chris is a conservative. Chris is also a Christian. And the neat thing about Chris is he is what he says he is. Everybody knows, Democrat, Republican alike, who knows Chris, they know that he doesn't mince words. He is, I mean, forgot the words I was going to use, but Chris doesn't have to pretend to be a Christian or a conservative. Look at his life. Look at the fruit of his life. Chris is a wonderful example to all the people that know him, all of the people that he's taught, all the people he's coached, all the people he's mentored. And here's the thing about Chris Miller. I'm just going to say this. Everything that Chris does, whether it's the way he works, whether it's the way he loves his wife, whether it's the way he gets up and reads his Bible in the morning, every morning at 5:30, you can set your clock to it, whether it's the way he shows up every day and works diligent on the farm, whether it's the way he runs the father and son camp in Oakland, Illinois, every single thing that Chris does, he does for the next generation. Chris is a long-term thinker, and the things that he does always have to do with the next generation. I am thankful to be up here to represent him. And we need more people like Chris that are an example and true leadership in Springfield who think about not just themselves or their political career, but about the generations that are coming behind us. Thanks.
Thank you. I want to thank the Chamber and all the people who put in this tremendous effort to put on this event. There's a lot of effort that went into this, and I really do appreciate that, because having the opportunity to speak to the voters, to me, is a very important thing. Being able to reach out and not only speak, but to listen, very important. As Gail said, I am Terry Davis. I'm a small business owner. Most of you probably are familiar with me, but if you're not, I'll give you a little background. I came here almost 40 years ago. I started my business and have run it from the time when we had one part-timer to now we support or partially support 6 families. It's grown nicely. And during that time, I have seen jobs leaving, I've seen layoffs, I've seen families lose their income, I've seen people pack up and leave, I've seen students have to go across state lines to get their education. And I just became fed up with that. So when this opportunity came up to run for state office, it felt to me like just the natural progression, like it was time for me to do my service and to bring my experience and my business acumen to Springfield and try to make things work better over there. I mean, nobody's going to walk in and snap their fingers and make it all just solve all the problems. but somebody has to carry the 110th district's water over to Springfield and make our importance known to Springfield. So that's why I'm in the race, and that's what I hope to do when I go to Springfield.
Several different issues that are addressed through these questions, and I hope that we all get to hear Mr. Miller's response to these sometime. The very first question is, what is your position on term limits?
I guess I'll take that one. I know it's extremely popular to jump right on term limits. And things are more complicated than just kicking out Madigan. Everyone knows that Madigan has been there too long and he has way too much power. Problem with term limits is this. Out of the 100% of the legislators that are there are a lot of people over there with sincere, good desire to really work hard for their districts. And those legislators, we don't need to kick out. We can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. What we need to do is prevent leaders from staying in power too long. That's our problem. The accumulation of power in one individual, like Mike Madigan, has been the problem with the state. Leadership needs to rotate. We need to bring people in with fresh ideas, new ideas, and in that way we prevent somebody like Madigan from accumulating the power that he has to control everything that goes on in Springfield. There are many leaders, legislators that you can think of who have done wonderful jobs, and they work very hard for the district and make good decisions. We can't kick everybody out just because we want to get rid of Madigan. So keeping leaders from staying in power too long or staying in their leadership roles too long would prevent that. The other thing we could do is lower the salaries. I mean, it's a full-time paid job. They make more than some teachers make. If it wasn't so attractive, people wouldn't stay around so long. They'd go, they'd serve, and they'd come home.
And I'm going to ask that we not have too much applause, just because it will slow down the process. So, Terry, your next question. And with this question, if there's someone who, if I'm not saying this correctly, then please let me know. Senator Chapin Rose has introduced a bill aiming to consolidate regional universities based on discipline. And by that, my understanding is that they're going to be called centers of excellence. And for example, Eastern has always been known as a teacher's school, and maybe this would be the place in Illinois people would come for teacher education, but the journalism department is best perhaps, I just gave that as an example, at Illinois State, and so you would go to Illinois State to be a journalism major. So we would focus on the things that each university does well, as opposed to now where we offer a wide range of possibilities. So what is your position on this bill?
Well, SB 31, I in fact spoke at great length the other day with Chapin about this, just to get a little deeper understanding of it. There are some aspects of it that I think are perfectly workable. And to hear the explanation that Chapin gives, it's not unreasonable. The problem with the bill as it is right now is that it's a job killer. It would require that universities cut jobs like crazy. You know, if you went to this university over here, there might be, 8 professors in a particular department. There might be 10 in another university, you know, there might be 60 professors. The goal of this bill is to cut that down so that there would only be one university with 8 professors, and these other professors would just have to go look for jobs somewhere else. That just adds to the mass exodus that's our problem in Illinois. What we need to do is grow Illinois, not give more people reasons to leave. Now, certainly, we've got to figure out how to balance our budgets and make these things, make the universities funded. And we do that by looking into the state budget. We've been going over the state budget line by line. And there are places in the budget where we can trim, where there's excess. There's $43 million in telecommunications. There's $12.5 million in printing. There are areas where we can cut our budgets and come up with efficiencies, and it will allow us to continue to fund our universities and create a situation where we don't force people to go to a university that they don't want to go to.
And along those lines, because you did mention the budget, it says, where do you see opportunities to reduce waste and overspending in the state budget?
Well, I just mentioned a couple of them.
Yes.
Yes. You know, we've begun this process of going over the budget line by line. There's, in any bureaucracy as big as the state, there's going to be places where we can find areas to cut, for sure. The travel budgets are excessive. There's no need to travel as much as they're traveling, because we now have Skype. We have ways of making communications much easier than have to physically travel from here to Chicago. That's all expensive stuff. My wife, example, works for DCFS, for example. There's a lot of travel that is mandated that could be changed to make that much more efficient. We have to look at modernizing the state so that we don't have all these people traveling all over the state unnecessarily. Then it's because it's expensive. The printing budget is another area. We've $12.5 million in printing. We live in the digital age. You don't have to print everything out. I mean, how many of your credit card companies now are sending you your bills via email because they don't want to pay to print it all? It's expensive. Plus, when you print it at the state, then it has to be taken by somebody and filed somewhere and stored somewhere. That's all additional expense. So there are a lot of ways that we can look into these budgets and start modernizing and finding the efficiencies. Another way we could cut the state's budget, cut the payroll on the legislators. $67,000 a year. A lot of other states pay much less than that. $17,000 to $20,000 for legislators. Let's make it a part-time job so that people don't want to stay there, save the state some money.
And another budget question. What is your response to the pension shift in the governor's, it says, and the governor's recent budget proposal? So what is your response to the pension shift and the governor's recent budget proposal?
As the budget, or as Governor explained the budget, the pension shift to me is the state of Illinois asking the local governments to bail the state out for the incredible malfeasance over the last 25 years where the pensions have not been fully funded as they were supposed to. I mean, that's nearly criminal. And to ask the local governments to pay that back when it was the state that caused the problem is just another example of big government trying to put things back on small government. You know, the local governments did not cause this problem, the state government did, and asking the local governments to bail the state out over this pension is just, it's big government that I think the local governments have done their job. Now it's time for the state to come up and figure out how to make up for what it's done.
This next question has the word budget in it also. How do you intend to represent Eastern and Lakeland in Springfield, especially if we are faced with another budget impasse?
Well, the budget impasse that we just went through that caused so much pain for families and job losses, we cannot do that again. It was a political football, and it felt to me like the state was holding all of us hostage. It was a huge hostage crisis, and you got people in Springfield button heads, and real families and real people are hurting and losing their jobs and losing their futures in Illinois. The budget itself needs to be trimmed so that we can find the money to pay for the things that are the most important. Since the days of Jefferson, education has been an important thing for this country. We have, right after World War II, the GI Bill brought soldiers back, and it led to, when they got their educations and they were put into jobs, it led to the biggest boom in our economy ever. When we went into the 50s and the 60s, the economy was cooking because we educated all those soldiers that came back. We placed a high priority on that. Now, it was a program that cost a little bit, but it paid back so much in terms of what it did for the economy. So what we need to do is prioritize, make our budgets so that we have the funds available. We need to keep students here in Illinois instead of sending them out, because when they leave the state, chances of them ever coming back here to have their families and to start a business are reduced dramatically. So we need to keep those students here, provide them an education and a future.
My next question does not have the word budget in it. How do you feel about the issue of tort reform as it relates to recruitment and retention of healthcare providers throughout Illinois? So it's a question about recruitment and retention of healthcare providers throughout Illinois.
Could you repeat that in English?
Yeah, how do you,
I'm just
you're
kidding.
kidding, sorry,
Yes,
my bad.
My vague attempt at humor there. Is it relating into a specific area or in healthcare tort reform? And could I get a little clarification?
Well, I think the question is really about Illinois healthcare providers, that people leave Illinois because is there a lack of...
Talking about large verdicts in medical malpractice cases that are driving doctors out of the state. I'm assuming.
No caps.
Not my question, but I'm assuming it.
Okay.
And you just said no...
No caps on the...
Okay.
That's an interesting question. And that's one of those things you say when you have no idea what the answer. Well, I have in fact talked with Dale Ryder about tort reform, and like most things in politics, it's really complicated. You tell lawyers that they have caps on what they can get. It's like there's a jigsaw puzzle, and that's one piece of the puzzle. You take that out, and all of a sudden the puzzle doesn't work anymore. Tort reform, in its purest form, would really work well if we had some way of making sure that it was equitable. In other words, you don't want to say you can't have a decision that's above this amount in every case, because in some cases it may have to be. I think the key is that any award in that sort of situation needs to be justifiable. And some of these, spill a hot coffee in your lap and, get millions of dollars, that's kind of hard to justify. I mean, there's examples of that out there that should be common sense. But I guess the bottom line is that if we can achieve a beneficial effect on our healthcare rates by putting effective limits on torts, we can probably achieve a justifiable result.
Okay. This question is about the Electoral College. And there's just a brief intro. It says that Maine and Nebraska award the Electoral College proportionally, not winner takes all. So the question is, will you seek to reform the Electoral College in Illinois to resemble something like Maine and Nebraska's situation?
Proportionally, or I will have to just be entirely honest with you. I don't know how Illinois awards its Electoral College. It's not something I've dealt with, so
yeah, it's all
it's winner take all. Okay, so falling back on total honesty, I just it would seem to me that it would be more equitable if the state is split 60-40, it would seem to me to be more equitable to allow the Electoral College to award it in that proportion. That seems fair to me, although, like I said, it's not something that I spent a great deal of time thinking about. The Electoral College it's a national issue, but just on initial response would be, if you're going to represent the citizens and the true wishes of the citizens, why not award them proportionally?
Okay. The governor is pushing for a property tax freeze. Do you support such a freeze? And then the second part of the question, so do you support such a freeze? If so, what do you tell entities such as schools, municipalities, and other groups that are dependent on property taxes? And I certainly know Charleston is one of those.
Well, let me say right off the bat, I am a landowner, a property owner, and if there's anybody out there that hates property taxes more than I do, I'd like to meet you, because property tax... Jim Donasso says, yeah, I do. I don't know, I think I'm right up there with you, Jim. I think I am. But taxes are how we pay for the things that we want. So my question always when I'm confronted with this is, okay, well, what do we want to start giving up? The idea of capping property tax is another one of those things that sounds real good, but then you can wind up in the situation that Oklahoma just wound up in, where they didn't have enough money to run their schools. They had to shut their schools down only 4 days a week instead of running schools all week. Is that what we want? I don't know. We'd have to look into that. But if we put the property a legal cap on property tax, it limits the local control over what we can do. So I think those things are another thing I would bring back to the local level. I think the people on the local level have the ability to control what they want to do better than a mandated statewide cap.
Okay. And I'm guessing we would have had more questions if we knew that there were two candidates here. So this last question I have for you is one that I could have asked to begin with, which is, why are you the best candidate to represent us in Springfield?
Because I show up for forums. I mean, let's be honest, this is not a comfortable thing to do. Answering off-the-cuff questions is not easy, but I'm willing to do it. I know it's not fun. Great fun. It's a little bit of fun, but I can think of a couple things I'd rather be doing right now, but it's okay. It's okay. In all seriousness, when I was asked to do this, I talked with my wife, and we talked in great detail, because the first thing I heard from a couple of people I talked to was, you got to really consider what this will do to your family, and it's a difficult thing to do. And it's time consuming, and it's stressful, and so what my wife said to me was, you know, you've really been preparing for this for the last 35 years. Your civic involvement, your involvement with local charities, your commitment to the community, your commitment to the YMCA, your commitment to the local areas, the civic and my involvement with all the other charitable and civic organizations. It is a commitment to building a better community, and that's what being a state representative is all about. It's making decisions that will benefit this community, and that's the reason that I believe I would, in addition to what I've learned in business of being honest and having integrity, that's why I think I would be the best candidate.
And now we have closing statements, and we'll go ahead and start with Mr. Goff, because he can either do a prepared statement or respond, in this case, to anything that he chooses to.
Can I get the microphone?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to respond to just a little bit on why Chris would be the best candidate. That was the last question asked to Mr. Davis. The first thing I want to say is, in these races that, especially this race here, Mr. Davis is not an enemy. Nobody is an enemy. An opponent, yes. An opponent for a short period of time, yes. Will there be a winner and a loser? Yes. That's fair enough. Having said that, I'm just going to say why I think Chris Miller is the best candidate. Honestly, if it wasn't for Chris Miller's candidacy, me and my children and my wife would probably be relocating to a different state. Chris gives me hope, and here's why. Chris is a conservative, and Chris stands by what he says he is. He doesn't have to prove it. He is a conservative if you just look at his life. Now, why is Chris the best candidate? Because he's running as a conservative. So I'm going to say this. Chris is the only conservative candidate. Yeah. Thank you, whoever you were. Okay, yeah, thank you. All right. And I'll just say this, because this is a question we get in Charleston a lot. Chris's campaign is the only campaign in this state representative race that's being managed by a Republican. Right. One of the other things is that Chris is the only candidate not being supported by the Coles County Democrats or the Coles County Progressives.
But Chicago.
I've seen.
That's fantastic.
That's allowed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Okay, it is. That's what makes sense. So I see the things that are being written. I see the support. I have the documents of all that. I see the names that both groups are calling Chris. Okay, that's it. Chris is the only conservative candidate option you have.
First, I would like to thank the Chamber for all the effort that they put in to make this happen. I know it was a lot of time, a lot of expense, and I think it's really important to be able to speak directly to the voters and let them hear what we have to say. And that's why I'm here. I would also like to respond just a little to the only conservative. I suppose you have to look at whether, I don't know whether Barry Goldwater would be a conservative today. He's kind of my political model, and I follow his idea of government being small. The best government is the one that provides for the services for the citizens, but maximizes their freedom. To me, keeping government out of the details and the finer points of my life is what I think is the best government. So what I would like to do I mean, I think that politics is about building relationships. It's about being able to see the entire cornfield, not just the few stalks that are in front of you. I'm someone who has built a successful family business based on integrity and honesty and sensible decisions, and that's the same traits and talents that I hope to take to Springfield to do the same thing for the 110th District. And I want to thank you all very much for being here.